So I know we talked about you having to go on a trip within the next couple months. And I know that there are certain things that you've been looking at into making sure that all your finances are set for that trip. And then I know we've also talked about different things that you see yourself being able to accomplish in the future. So I wanted to introduce to you this tool, this financial tool that you could use to make sure that you're taking the right steps to achieve those goals that you have.
Okay.
So something that, as you can see here, this is called the goal setting tool. It has 4 different steps, and we're going to go ahead and go through them one by one as well as filling them out together. I'm going to go ahead and write down, for this specific goal that we're going to go through today, I'm going to go ahead and write them down. But future forward, we could work on more goals together, and you would be going ahead and doing it on your own.
Okay.
So first, let's start off with the most important step, which is seeing what goals we want to focus on today. So, is there a short-term goal that you could think of that you need to achieve within the next 6 months? That basically it's either a hope, a want, or a dream of yours that you hope to achieve financially within the next 6 months?
Yeah, I mean, I think the trip, like we talked about, getting enough money to be comfortable on the trip and buying things and shopping and eating as well, so you don't starve. That would be the first goal.
Gotcha. That is definitely something that we're going to go ahead and write down here. So let's start off with just putting saving money for travel. Okay. Is there an idea of where you see yourself budgeting, like how much you see yourself budgeting for that?
Yeah, so the trip's paid for, but I think I would need about $800 to eat and shop comfortably.
For sure. And it 100% validated that you need to, not necessarily need, but it's important to also make sure that you're getting the things that you would want while being on this trip.
Exactly.
Okay, so we're going to go ahead and start off with just putting $800 for the short-term goal, which would be the saving money for your trip.
Mm-hmm.
Now, for your long-term goal, it's basically a goal that you see yourself or wanting to achieve, whether it be for you or your family, that is longer than 6 months. Is there something that you could think of?
Yeah, I think longer than 6 months is, I usually like to have my savings account at about $5,000 just for emergencies or anything that comes up, family-wise. Usually gets close to that, and then I book a trip like this, so
Okay, so
I need to get back there.
Gotcha. Okay, so we're looking into maybe not within 6 months, of course, maybe within a year.
Yeah.
Focusing into trying to get anywhere near 5,000.
Yeah.
And even if it's not a year, are you? Look more into it in a little bit. Okay, so we're just gonna go ahead and just put that long-term goal. We'll look into the deadline later. Would be to save $5,000. Okay. Then now that we've come up with our short-term goal, which is to have $800 for travel, and our long-term goal, which is to have $5,000 under our savings account, we're gonna go ahead and go on to step 2. So step 2 is actually a very important step because step 2 is making sure that we are achieving our SMART goals. So basically, a SMART goal is going through these steps that we're about to go through, which is making sure that the goal is specific, that it is measurable, that you're able to reach it, and that's relevant so that you actually are in need of, and if there's a deadline. Okay? So we're going to go through the short-term goal and then the long-term goal and go through this through these steps. Okay. So do we have a specific goal?
Yes.
Right? Which is the
$800 for travel.
Correct. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and put that there. Is it measurable?
Yes.
Yes. Is there, so it is definitely measurable because we could look into it, maybe seeing how much. Clearly, we have a deadline in mind of when you need the money by because it's whenever you go on your trip. So the deadline, we'll go down there and then we'll put in the deadline, but it is definitely measurable. So we have that there. Is it able to be reached?
Yes.
Okay. And is it relevant and important to you?
Yes. Okay. I don't starve.
Correct. And your deadline in mind is?
June 27th.
June 27th. Perfect. Okay. And then now going into your long-term goal, is it specific?
Yes.
Okay. We want to do the $5,000.
Mm-hmm.
Is it measurable? Yes, because we could break it down as needed. Is it able to be reached?
Yes.
I also believe that you could reach it for sure. And is it relevant, important to you?
Yes.
Perfect. And then, do we want to think of a deadline for it? What would be like your ideal deadline?
Yeah. Ideally, it would be January 1st, 2020. Realistically, it's probably not going to be January 1st, 2020, but I want to reach it like first quarter of 2020.
Okay, so are you comfortable with putting a deadline of March?
Yeah.
Okay, we'll go ahead and put March 2020. Okay. So now that we have made sure that our goals that we have set for both our short-term and long-term goals are SMART, which basically means that they follow these specific criteria, then we're going to go ahead and go on to step 3, which is an action plan that we can create to make sure that you are separating that as necessary in order to achieve that goal that you're trying to complete. Okay. So during this time, we also want to think about the resources that we might need in order to achieve that goal. So maybe needing like an extra tool to save money, like maybe putting this tool and breaking it into smaller goals and using it that way, or maybe using some sort of like budgeting calculator or whatever it might be. So for now, for the save money for travel, so we want to save $100. So the action step is maybe what would be something that you feel like you might spend money on that is not necessarily a thing? Nails.
My nails.
Okay. Do you think that you would be okay with stopping doing your nails like once a month or something?
Yes.
Okay, so maybe an action step would be doing nails once a month.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and then we're going to resources needed. Technically, it is none because we don't need, because we don't need any tool or anything to stop that from happening.
Okay.
But what we do need is to put a date to complete the step, which will be starting doing nails once a month, starting
May.
Okay, so we're going to go ahead and put today's date. Okay, May 4th.
Okay.
And then we're going to go into another action step that might help us with that short-term goal, which could be, is there something else that you want to be able to change or want to be able to do in order to reach that goal of yours?
Yeah, maybe eating at home.
Okay. So we're going to do grocery shopping. Maybe what we could do under resources is creating a shopping list with amounts.
Yes, budgets for the groceries.
Okay. And then we're going to go ahead and put a date for that, for when it is that you start.
I actually started today.
Okay.
I got groceries today.
Okay. Did you do the list with like budgeting amounts?
Not with specific budgeting amounts, just like an overall budget.
Okay. And so in 2 weeks, do you foresee yourself buying more groceries?
No, I only go once a month.
Once a month. Okay, perfect. So we're just going to go ahead and put, for this one to just start June 5th so that we could start good.
Budget, okay.
Okay. Okay, so we're just going to go ahead and do those two for now, and then we'll go deeper into it as you get the hang of it, and then as you figure out more goals that you think that, or action steps that you could take into reaching that goal.
Okay.
And now for your long-term goal, what is one thing that you believe that you could do in order to achieve that?
Well, I get bonuses at the end of the year, so I think committing now to put like 50% of it into my savings account would be a good first step.
Okay, so we're going to go ahead and put that as the action step, would be saving 50% of bonus. Resources needed would be your savings account, right? Okay, and then the date to be completed would be the day you get your bonus.
So let's do 12/15/2019.
Okay. Okay, so we're going to let that be our long-term goal action step. And then we're going to go ahead and go through the rest of the goal setting tool, which is the fourth and final step, which is the The weekly target.
Okay.
So how much money do we want to save per week? I know, you get paid bi-weekly?
Yes.
Okay, so even though we get paid bi-weekly, we still want to know how much money we need to save weekly-wise, and then we'll just add both of them together into what it is that you need to save per check.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay, so basically, this step is will help you in seeing the amount of money that you will need to save per week, as I mentioned. So the way that this works is, let's go ahead and say that you need, so we say that you need $800, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then number of weeks to deadline. So how many weeks do we have until we meet that deadline?
About 8 weeks.
Okay, so we have 8 weeks. So we do 8 weeks here. And then what we just do is simple, divide 800 by 8. So we know that we need to save $100 a week,
Mm-hmm.
which would be $200 bi-weekly.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so now we know that our week goal of savings amount, or bi-weekly, since we get paid every 2 weeks, would be $200 bi-weekly.
Mm-hmm.
And I think you are more than capable in achieving that. Do you foresee that for yourself as well?
I think so. When rent's due, I don't know. We'll see.
Okay, so when rent's due, what we can do is, after we do this goal setting tool, we could go ahead and look into other tools into making sure that we're budgeting for the amount of money that we actually get paid.
Okay.
And so making sure that if there's things that we could move around or that we could look into for a different time, that we could do that as well to make sure that we're still achieving these goals. And then the last one is, so $5,000, and then we know we have about, okay, so let's just say we're going to give ourselves 9 months. And so 9 months, we're just going to go ahead and round it. 9 times 4 weeks in a month. I know it varies, but just for the sake of this, we'll go ahead and do that.
Okay.
9 times 4 is,
36,
okay,
I think.
correct. So we're going to go ahead and divide this by 36. We'll bring the calculator out for this specific task. And then, okay, so we're going to go ahead and put 5,000 divided by 36 weeks. It would be about $140 a week to save. Okay, I know that this might seem like a lot right now, because I know we mentioned saving this money for the trip, but maybe what we could look at also is starting to save this amount of money once the trip is over,
Mm-hmm.
and maybe even saving more money, just depending on how that trip goes. But this definitely can give you a little bit of an idea of how it would look like. How does this make you feel?
I think it makes a lot of sense, and to see it broken down is really good. And to know that even though things look big, you can take it piece by piece.
Good, I'm glad. And so whenever you start feeling overwhelmed or feeling like you're not able to achieve that goal of yours, we could just come right back here and then making, maybe, like I said, doing some changes, breaking it down shorter, and also understand that goals are not always meant to be kept, but rather be changed depending on what it is that is needed. So even if you can't reach the goal by the deadline that you want to meet it, as long as you achieved the ultimate goal, that's really all that matters. Okay? So let's go ahead and get started with this, and then we'll keep moving forward.
Okay.